haven't been replaced for half a century. We're not just doing this work here in Philly, we're doing it across the country, from coast to coast in the American heartland. Just over a year ago, we launched the Lead, Pipe, and Paint Action Plan to coordinate 10 different federal agencies, get all 10 of them together so that we could pool money and get it out the door quickly. Since the start of the Biden-Harris administration, we've already put more than $5 billion.
So while the subsidy came in the form of a 2-year budget proposal, whether it is permanent or has bipartisan support is debatable. The proposal is estimated to cost the state nearly $45 million, and plus a slew of crisis-era subsidies, including the tax breaks already timed out. So folks, here's what I'm saying. The adjustment could lead to a refund shock. While the subsidy came in the form of a check for some taxpayers, others received a recovery rebate credit, which helped boost refund checks last year. The benefit will not be in play this cycle, but the threshold for claiming the child care and the dependent care tax breaks has returned to its pre-crisis levels, as have the size of the qualifying tax credits. In 2021, though, the child credit and the dependent care credit have temporarily received expansions, allowing those who made $125,000 or even more to deduct up to 50% of $4,000 in the child care expenses. It was also refundable. Taxpayers have until April 18th to file their taxes, get that money, especially if, according to the IRS, Alabama, California, and Georgia storm victims may have until May 15th to file various federal, individual, state taxes. But just know that filing electronically is the fastest way to get your stimulus cash. Yes, folks, it is true. Everybody, today is the day that $2,000 checks will be deposited for millions of seniors and retirees today. The SSA has confirmed that new check deposit dates for this month, many are now pushing for extra specifically for seniors. And now, today the SSI recipients will be receiving payments of $1,000. The monthly amounts for this year have increased to $914 from last year. This increase is due to the cost of living adjustment of 8.7%. The payments will go out today, and more than a month after beneficiaries saw the last payment. In addition to the federal benefits, 33 states are sending out their own supplemental payments. Your earnings, your assets will determine if you qualify for SSI. Eligible payments in couples can have more than $3,000 in assets, while individuals can have more than $2,000. Qualified children may receive a bit more than they normally do because of the SSI income, but SSI payments may be less for those who qualify for both Social Security and SSI. If you received the Social Security benefits before May 1997, or if you received both SSI and Social Security, the payment schedule is a bit different. Instead of getting your payments on a Wednesday, you'll receive your Social Security payment on the 3rd day of each month, and SSI on the 1st day of each month. So the payment schedules are different because of the holidays or weekends. So folks, just know the next checks will land in your bank on the 1st and 31st. The SSA will also begin issuing retirement payments in February. In February, folks, for those who need it the most. And according to the SSA payment, the scheduled for February 8th will be for recipients who were born between the 1st and 10th of the month. Qualifying for the maximum Social Security benefit, though, is not easy because to receive the $4,500 a month, you need to start receiving benefits at age 70. Yes, at age 70 in order to receive stimulus. Now, the qualifying for the maximum Social Security benefit isn't easy, though, because to receive a full $4,500 a month, you'd actually need to start benefits at age 70. And if you're retired at age 62, which is when you become eligible for the benefit, first of all, the maximum benefits is already $2,600. A lot of things are happening in Congress, folks. Much things and much progress being made. Nearly 5 million American seniors across the U.S. are also living below the poverty line. And according to the latest census data, 1 million seniors have fallen into poverty over the course of the year. More people are poor, more people need stimulus.
Social safety net benefits to help the nation cope with the pandemic and minimize the impact. What would an instant cut to this social safety net mean for Medicare beneficiaries and their families? The American family could face an abrupt increase in costs and decrease in care. What would this mean for your local hospital back home? Hospitals could see a cut of 20% for care of COVID patients. Without a responsible plan in place, millions of patients, including many veterans, children, would abruptly face increased barriers to critical hospital care. Rural patients and those with behavioral health needs would be among the most impacted. So why are some of my colleagues pushing for this to happen? Because it's rooted in political messaging, not thoughtful policy. An instant termination to the public health emergency without proper coordination with agencies, states, and providers would interrupt insurance coverage, access to care, increase patients' out-of-pocket costs, and threaten provider payments. I, like many of my Democratic colleagues and millions of Americans, want to officially end the pandemic and the emergency. As I mentioned, President Biden has announced his intention to do so while taking the time necessary to absorb the impacts. Pushing for an immediate cessation of the emergency initiatives for messaging purposes could leave millions of Medicare beneficiaries unexpectedly without access to programs that they're currently on. Mr. Speaker, it's for those reasons I submit a motion to recommit that will prohibit the bill from going into effect if it will negatively impact Medicare beneficiaries, and I ask for unanimous consent to add the text of this amendment to the record immediately prior to the vote of the motion to recommit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Without objection.
Good news, Congress is passing a brand new bill this week. Lawmakers have announced a new plan that will provide hundreds of thousands of Americans with up to $630 in extra financial aid. Now, there are a few requirements in order to be eligible for this new stimulus money. If you want to claim the stimulus check, then be sure to watch until the end of the video. So here is some big news. Hundreds of thousands of families in Pennsylvania could receive the $630 in state child tax care credits after Governor Tom Wolf revealed the details of the Child Independent Care Enhancement Program. As inflation continues on the rise, so does food and gas and other primary expenses for families all over the state. The Pennsylvania plan will help those working families who pay for daycare and are already qualifying for the federal program as well. They'll be able to claim this credit under 2023 tax filing. To be eligible, a household must earn below the $43,000 threshold, so they can get a $350 payment for a child or $630 for one if they have two or more children. The budget was approved earlier this month by the Pennsylvania Senate. Over 200,000 families will see the benefit of the Child Tax Credit Program. In a release, the governor said that cost should never be a barrier for parents looking for an educational, safe, supportive, and fun environment for their children while they work at each day. Now the IRS gets another shot at long-term investments in its taxpayer services. The budget reconciliation package announced this week by Chuck Schumer and Manchin will give the IRS $80 billion over the next 10 years. Schumer said on Wednesday that he expects the Senate to vote on the budget reconciliation bill next week, and the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act would help shrink a growing tax gap between what taxpayers owe and what the agency collects. IRS Commissioner Chuck Reddick told Congress last year a tax gap may be as high as $1 trillion a year, and the package gives the Postal Service $3 billion in funding for the EV vehicles and charging infrastructure. The Biden administration and Democrats first included these spending proposals in the Build Back Better Act, but Manchin eventually rejected the deal early this year. His role in drafting a similar, less expensive package improves his chances of passing the Senate. President Biden said today that the bill has a lot of similarities compared to the Build Back Better Act. Biden stated, "It's not all of it, but we're moved in a long way. With this legislation, we're facing up to some of our biggest problems, and we're taking a giant step forward as a nation." The IRS would have until September 30th, 2031 to spend the money. The IRS received $45 billion towards its enforcement operations, and $25 billion will go toward operation support. Another $4.75 billion will go towards a 6-year modernization effort. Once the spending bill passes, the IRS will have access to the multi-year funds. It says that we are needed to make more progress on modernization goals. More than